And greetings. Happy Thursday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. I am Steve Deace here in Dallas at the Blaze Studios. I'm doing Liberty Pastors events this week. Great opportunity to speak to a few hundred pastors from around the country last night, hopefully encouraging and equipping them. Todd and Aaron, Todd Ers and Aaron McIntyre remain back there in our posh Des Moines studios. Good to see those gentlemen as well. We are brought to you by our friends over at Hillsdale, and although the calendar has turned to August, they are still, for a limited time, letting you see the inspiring portrayal of Thomas Jefferson from a letter late in his life reflecting back on the great work known as the Declaration of Independence. And if you go and watch this video at daceforhillsdale.com, you can also get a free commemorative copy of the Declaration of Independence as well. Just go to daceforhillsdale.com. It's a legacy that must be passed down. You have seen what has happened in the last generation with the cultural hijacking that has taken place courtesy of academia, the media, and pop culture. Hillsdale's trying to put a dent in that. Let's help them out. daceforhillsdale.com is where to go. Again, that's daceforhillsdale.com. All right, coming up on today's show at the bottom of the hour, the Clarence Darrow of the medical freedom movement, Aaron Siri, attorney extraordinaire. If Big Pharma is losing in court somewhere, it's probably to him. He will be joining us at the bottom of this hour. Next hour, we'll continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of Romans for Theology Thursday. But let's kick it off, as we always do, with Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
By civilizational suicide. Three of the masterminds behind the formative event of our era, the terror attacks of 9/11, have struck a plea deal with the Biden Defense Department. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the most well-known of the three, will avoid the death penalty and instead take a life sentence in prison for pleading guilty to a bevy of war crimes and other heinous charges, including the murder of 2,976 people. 2,976 people, and this terrorist is avoiding the death penalty. This comes on the same day we learned from reporting at the New York Post that a pair of illegal aliens from Jordan are walking free after posting bail. Their charges? They tried to breach the Marine Corps base at Quantico. Hassan Youssef Hamdan, a 32-year-old, and Muhammad Khair Dabu, 28-year-old, were released from Immigration and Customs Enforcement detention despite their immigration status. Hamdan had crossed into the country illegally in April, and Dabu had overstayed his student visa and is subject to removal proceedings. They were arrested on May 3rd for trespassing onto the military installation and handed over to ICE because of their immigration statuses. Moving on, a new video surfaced yesterday from the moments before the attempted assassination of Donald Trump on July 13th. The video comes from behind the stage where Trump was speaking and shows a shadowy figure moving across the roof where Thomas Matthew Crooks managed to get off several shots before he himself was killed. We're being told the Secret Service and other security detail didn't see this guy. Trump spoke at the National Association of Black Journalists conference yesterday.
Mr. President, we so appreciate you giving us an hour of your time. I want to start by addressing the elephant in the room, sir. A lot of people did not think it was appropriate for you to be here today. You have pushed false claims about some of your rivals, from Nikki Haley to former President Barack Obama, saying that they were not born in the United States, which is not true. You have told 4 congresswomen of color who were American citizens to go back to where they came from. You have used words like animal and rabid to describe black district attorneys. You've attacked black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking black supporters to vote for you, why should black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question in such a horrible manner, a first question. You don't even say, hello, how are you? Are you with ABC? Because I think they're a fake news network, a terrible network. And I think it's disgraceful that I came here in good spirit. I love the black population of this country. I've done so much for the black population of this country.
And now checking in on the Olympics, Italian female boxer Angela Carini broke down in tears and despair after being beaten by a dude during a women's boxing match at the Paris Olympics. This video is a metaphor. Carini trained her whole life to make it to the Olympics, only to be bounced by another dude. And finally, some good news to end the montage. A California father says he's been granted full custody of his 4-year-old son following a protracted legal battle with the boy's mother, who allegedly forced the child to wear dresses and glitter because she wanted to raise him as non-binary. Harrison Tinsley told the Daily Signal podcast that he prevailed in the years-long court battle to win full physical custody of his son Sawyer, which the dad likened to watching a miracle. Tinsley alleged that Sawyer's mother, who he said identifies as a lesbian and non-binary herself, tried to push her gender ideology onto the child from the time he was a baby. After fighting an uphill battle in California's progressive court system for a year, he was finally able to meet his son for the first time when he was 15 months old. But Sawyer's mother's gender obsession only grew, he says, and the boy remained subject to all manner of manipulative tactics. Tinsley told the Daily Signal that the mother would throw Sawyer a girly-themed party for his 2nd birthday, where she made him wear a dress donned with a sheriff's badge. He took the boy to Disneyland, but refused to let him go on any rides unless he wore the princess shoes she had bought for him. After learning Sawyer's mother had been arrested for felony child endangerment, Tinsley filed for full custody in San Francisco Superior Court last year, claiming that the boy's mother had slandered and defamed him for years. The details of that arrest and incident are unclear. The dad said he presented the court with mountains of evidence, including 8 hours of police body cam footage and over 800 pages of supporting documents, but the court still sided with Sawyer's mother. Tinsley appealed the decision last December and claims that Child Protective Services in San Francisco became involved following an alleged incident about which he declined to further elaborate. CPS investigated and recommended Tinsley be granted full custody of the boy and that the mother be subject to regular drug and alcohol testing. Tinsley acknowledged that the investigators more than likely had different politics than he, but said he's grateful to them for putting aside politics and doing what was best for the child. That's the story of a dad who had the People's Republic of California opposed to his desire of rescuing his child from radical gender ideology, but he never gave up and never gave in, and now he can raise his son. And that's what happened while we were away.
Aaron's montage brought to you by America's Christian Credit Union. Got this awesome note from Rob Brewer. Says, I've had an account at ACCU since 2016 when Obamacare forced me to drop my health insurance and go with a Christian medical cost sharing program. They use an ACCU account for disbursement of my monthly contributions. A couple years later, I used ACCU for a parent loan to pay my daughter's college tuition for a semester. I also used them for a personal loan later. They're very easy to deal with, more than competitive on their rates and terms. As far as I'm concerned, I'm going to have accounts there for as long as I'm alive. I would highly recommend them for anyone. And again, that's from Rob Brewer. So if you want to make the switch today from the big banks who hate you to America's Christian Credit Union, and you can find out for yourself why Rob Brewer and our audience gave them such a sterling recommendation, you can visit americaschristiancu.com/Steve. America's, plural, americaschristiancu.com/Steve for complete program details to get started there on your switch. And they're federally insured by the National Credit Union Association as well. americaschristiancreditunion.com/switch. There is much to discuss in Aaron's montage today. I'm going to get to as much of it as I can, and then what we don't tackle, we will delve into in the overtime. I want to just quickly begin by reiterating the question that we wrestled with at this time yesterday. If the government were allowing a crazed lone gunman on purpose to assassinate Donald Trump, how would they have behaved any differently? That video that Aaron shared, when that came out yesterday, that's the Zapruder film of this assassination attempt. Right there. The idea that that was not seen when just a few moments later, a sniper from almost 500 feet away took him out after he got off his shots, of course. But the idea that that was not seen, it's just not believable. Any more than when you watch the Zapruder film and you see JFK's head go from the back into the left, from the back into the left. Is the magic bullet theory from Arlen Specter any more believable when you see that and the Warren Commission? It's just not believable. I don't know how anyone can come to any kind of conclusion that that was not seen. that he was not known. They forget all of the other evidence we have that we laid it all out yesterday for you. From the flying of the drone to the denial of Secret Service protection, from the vantage point that he was given within 150 yards, even though they had a sniper who was able to take him out from 500 yards away, so they had some form of an extended secure perimeter. When you see that video, it drives the nail home. There's just no way that was not seen. No possible way. So you are left, therefore, with only two possible conclusions. Only two. That it just so happened this was the most utterly and completely incompetent security operation in American history. And it just so happened to coincidentally coincide with the potential victim being someone that has been subjected to an American and historic levels of lawfare and legal persecution, from Russian collusion for 3 years to everything else. That the system just was unaware of how controversial of a figure Donald Trump is. And so just had a total and complete meltdown in an open field in arguably the most important state in this presidential election. With all, and this is the one rally where all the TV networks are live. They hadn't actually been doing that much of this cycle so far until that rally. So that rally where they just also happen to be live. The kid from a math club shimmies up a wall with a rifle and gets that vantage point, and he is so bad at this that he is seen moving around on camera. And this is such a systemic failure, and it just is. It coincides purely coincidentally with the most controversial figure in the country, who has had celebrities from Green Day to failed Carrot Top comedians holding up his severed head in public. And it just so happens, Wuhan for luck again, these bats from 900 kilometers away just swerved right into this wet market in this densely populated area and took a dump, guys. And then people ate it, and here we are. I mean, what do we do, you know? That's one option. You are given that one option. And that makes you a moron. A mind-numbed, undeniably stupid, too dumb to live moron. Or he needed killing, as they say in the South. Those are your options, guys. There aren't any other options. We're not dealing with some, deranged sniper who with PTSD went off the grid and has an axe to grind and knows how to circumvent all of these various security mechanisms because he's highly trained. That's the stuff of Amazon miniseries, not real life. This kid was in the math club, and he literally Googled how far away from JFK was Oswald, and then right after that signed up for the Trump rally. He did everything but wear a shirt, say, "I finna kill Trump here. Hold tight." Did everything else but that. That is the Zapruder film of this assassination attempt. So your options are, you're either too dumb to live, or they let the kid take the shots. I don't know what your other options are. And, math club, killer just wasn't up to the task. Or by God's grace, Trump just happened to tilt his head and it brushed his ear rather than hit him full flush in the face. But you have no other options. Those are your only two. So you can believe the magic bullet theory of this assassination attempt, that all these various levels, which, by the way, a bunch of people are not getting fired and thrown under the bus for, out of sheer embarrassment or shame. Ted Cruz exposed that yesterday. So you can believe that. There were 75. It's funny. The same people that are going to believe that are the same people that scoff at the idea that Trump plays 4D chess. So you don't think Trump plays 4D chess, and I agree with you, by the way. You don't think Trump plays 4D chess, but you think that these 47 random occurrences just happened to hit at a time when every television camera in America was rolling? Y'all have way more faith than me. I need to repent. I ain't got that level of faith. Or this is your other option, but there's absolutely nothing in between. And you can say whatever you want about Trump, man. We've said everything on this show over the years you could possibly say, good and bad, without getting arrested or swatted. Okay. 19 days ago, that dude took a bullet to the face and then walked into the absolute hornet's nest at the Black Journalist Convention yesterday. Say what you want about the dude, man, but tennis balls. Absolute tennis balls. And there's a lot of people, a lot of tough guys on apps and comment sections. You know who you are. You're the folks that every time I give an opinion, those are my pronouns, by the way. My new pronouns just dropped. Pronouns. Every time I give an opinion you don't like, I'm a grifter. You're those people. You got all the answers, man. You got it all figured out. Yet we don't ever see you guys in any battles. When we show up there, you're like never there. You're just in the preening comment sections with your know-it-all mentality. I'd like to see maybe you take a bullet to the face. And then 19 days later show up in a room like that and face that for the very first question. And you know what's coming going in. You showed up anyway. Let me reiterate what I said to a room full of a few hundred pastors last night. That dude has taken the bullets and taken the shots that you pastors are supposed to take, that we're supposed to take. Those are supposed to be for us. And I encourage this room of pastors last night, be worthy of being shot at. Be worthy of being persecuted. Be worthy of the lawfare. Be worthy of facing what Megan Basham is facing right now. Be worthy of that. Doesn't mean you have to agree with everything the guy says and does. I don't. But folks, they don't come after him because he's not a threat, but because he is. Such a threat that they just watched the math club flunky who went through 4 years of high school with a perpetual wedgie, just openly travailing on the sloped roof. Just watched it. Waited for him to get off enough shots. When it was clear he wasn't going to do the job, they finally took him out. And if you don't think that's what happened here, you are a deep devotee of your own self-righteousness. Congratulations. As Todd likes to say, you have substituted nihilism for principle.
Steve, people who let terrorists out on bail would never do such a thing.
Correct, Todd. Thank you for that, because I was going there absolutely next. The timing of that. Now, it is what? Is it day 300, 299 that we have hostages in Gaza since October 7th? How many times do you think those hostages have been assaulted, beaten, raped, psychologically abused? Never mind. We'll get to you after we cut a deal with the 9/11 masterminds. Hold tight. We'll get to you later. Just treasonous. I don't know how else to describe it. Just flat out treasonous. And that's why they had to turn around and cut this deal with Russia today to take that off of all the media headlines And everybody's going along with it, including Fox. I've got all the TVs up here in Pat Gray's studio that he's letting me use today. They've all just taken the shiny object of the deal with Russia to release those hostages, and no one's pointing out the deal anymore that was made this morning that is as absolutely treacherous as you could possibly imagine. Not to mention the timing of that. The timing of that on the heels of Israel taking out multiple high-value targets within the Islamo-fascist realm. You just knew that the Hamas caucus within the Democratic Party was going to have to come up with something to appease their friends in Iran. And this is it. Just treasonous. Maybe you think we can survive another 4 years of this. I don't. Because we have another story this morning. Illegal aliens from Jordan. You know, you can just skip rocks over the Rio Grande from Jordan to Quantico. Just a easy walk along that monkey bridge there on the You Too Dumb to Live River. Quantico. Now, to be fair, Quantico was unable for weeks, apparently, to unlock Math Club Shooter's phone. So this one may just be incompetence. But one of these days, whether it's those 100 Chinese nationalists that just happen to end up in San Diego, those 50 Egyptians who apparently were living it up in Tijuana and just too many cervezas, and we're in Laguna Beach. I mean, I don't know. I mean, make movies about stuff like this. Where's Zach Galifianakis, Now, illegal aliens from Jordan, the moderate Islamic country, just taking a tour of Quantico, as one does. Every time we see one of these stories, and there's not a tragedy, and there's not a 9/11, you essentially have gone to the craps table of history and rolled snake eyes to survive. You're only going to do that so many times before there will be literal hell to pay for this. Let me tell you what I said to Megyn Kelly this morning. I'm going to be on her. We taped it this morning. It's going to be on her YouTube channel later today. Did about a 45-minute panel discussion with her and our colleague here at the Blaze, Delano Squires, and we got into a lot of the issues that we just discussed here. And we're going to. I've made the decision. We're going to discuss what happened with the Italian boxer in the overtime today. Given how much time we have left in this segment, I want to give that the time that it deserves. So that'll be today's overtime topic for subscribers at blazetv.com/Deace. Because the video of that poor woman just sitting there afterwards sobbing, for me as a girl dad who grew up having to physically defend my mom against my dad, I mean, that hit me right in the ticker when I saw that video this morning. Because her sobs are basically a metaphor for what the spirit of the age has done to women. And the systemic failure of men in this last generation. So we're going to discuss that today in the overtime. But one of the things I said to Megyn Kelly on our panel today is everything that I have done this entire process, going back to the endorsement of Ron DeSantis, to all the analysis I gave you now, to the data I broke down about this chasing of the sliver of the vote, when in reality, if we just improved by a couple of points among voters, we're going to win anyway. We would just have won many. We pretty much had won every presidential election this century other than the Barack Obama ones. Or the first Barack Obama one. Actually, Romney would have won in 2012. Except that doesn't feel like we winning, does it? At least not to me. Anyway, everything I've done from last August when I endorsed DeSantis until now, until November 5th, comes from a place of, I think we desperately have to win. And I don't know in all my years that I have doing this now, this is my 18th year. I don't know that I have felt that or communicated that at the level that I feel it and am trying to express it right now. And so I look at the reaction from our side to Trump's appearance yesterday. Oh, don't talk about that stuff. Don't bring it up. Don't talk about that stuff. People don't want to talk about that stuff. So then I guess we just let them just continue to pummel us with this shibboleth of the damned called racism. Everything's racist. And we never punch back. Well, do it this way or don't do that. This is not a... Folks, buckle up the chin straps a little tighter. Okay? If you're a Michigan fan, we ain't playing Illinois this week. It's Ohio State. Except it's Ohio State now every week. Right? We got enemies, perpetual ones. Buckle those chin straps up a little tighter. This one means a little bit more. Some of you are going to get a little bit tougher. And you don't change culture by surrendering to it or running parallel to it. You change it by running straight on into it. That's why they're trying to shoot the dude. Because he does that. Not as often as he should, but more often than almost anybody else we've ever elected does. But then there's the other side of this that thinks it's just enough to do that. That going in there, and I thought he did great. And if you watch that thing, guys, you could see it in the clip that Aaron showed. There were, as you could see, he was winning some of this crowd over as this went on. And I don't care what their narrative is coming out of it. Donald Trump could have liquidated his bank account for reparations right there. They would have gone with the same exact damn narrative no matter what. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Buckle your chin straps tighter. It's a war. Understand that. We just watched a video where the shooter was just crawling around. Nobody took him out till after he shot. Weird. But disruption for disruption's sake is not how we're going to win either. The reason Trump won in 2016 is his disruption pointed to issues, beginning with immigration. And that's how you build a base beyond fanboys, but people who are like, that's a guy who fights for me. So if you're just going to go to that event yesterday, and that's a one-time thing, and then walk out so that they then control the narrative from that time forward about what happened there, that was a waste of your time. But if you're going to use that kind of disruption to say, and you know what? The same people that are up here asking these, that asked all those racist questions of me are the same ones that want to let Khalid Sheikh Mohammed cut a plea deal. Are the same ones that want to let Jordanian illegal aliens show up at Quantico just moseying around. Are the same ones that want to let female boxers get punched in the face by dudes. Connect it to issues. If you don't connect it to issues, you make you the only issue. And everything becomes a referendum on whether people like and admire you. And that's actually what the other side wants. And they have conditioned, we must acknowledge this, we've seen it 3 cycles in a row, they have conditioned some plurality of Americans that if that is the argument, there is nothing Trump can do or his brand of politics or those under that banner can do to win them over. I actually want to run the 2016 playbook again. I'm not against it. I just don't see it. The 2016 playbook is disruption for the sake of attacking issues that people care about. The same people up here telling you Kamala Harris is African-American are also telling you that inflation's not at an all-time high. Can't believe these people at all. Did you see what Todd did a few minutes ago? Where he chimed right in and said, Steve, the same people that just cut a plea deal with 9/11 masterminds, I'm sure could be trusted not to try to assassinate their own political opposition. See the connecting of the dots he made there? That's what needs to be done here. If the whole thing is about what you think of the Trump disruption, that's the argument Democrats want to have. They've conditioned a lot of people to go ahead and vote against their own self-interest over mean tweets. We've seen it before. But if we're going to do disruption for the point of then tying it back to issues, that's devastating to them. So we learned a lot of lessons coming out of the scamdemic, and we met a lot of new friends, and we've aligned with some new partners. You had an interesting coalition of people who understood the signs of the times that were going on not that long ago and what to do about them. And one of those partners is our friends over at Deace Medical. They came on board when they saw the biomedical industrial complex suddenly taking a drug like ivermectin that had just been awarded a Nobel Prize as recently as 2015, and just completely reconditioned it down as horse paste so far down into the water table that they were calling it this on NFL pregame shows to mock Aaron Rodgers a few years ago on football shows. Took a drug that has been given to literally tens of millions of people since the 60s, hydroxychloroquine, and is largely sold in the Western world over the counter, and also said, that's dangerous. Don't fill those prescriptions. And Deace Medical came on board and said, hey, man, they blindsided us this time. We can't let them do it again. And so they created the Deace case for some of the most proven antibiotics we've ever discovered, from doxycycline to amoxicillin, to make sure if those are the next ones when we need them the most that are now on the too dangerous to take hit list, they wanted to make sure you had backups of those. But now they have expanded the Deace case as well. If you've got other medications, even practical things like EpiPens, you can look through a pretty vast menu of meds that you can get backups from them as well. And I think if you've got loved ones on Medicare, for example, who are at this point just complete wards of the state, this is a great way to make sure that they've got the peace of mind that they can't get Fauci'd one day in the future as well. So if you want to get your case over at Deace Medical, and yes, aforementioned ivermectin can be included in that as well, go to jacemedical.com, JASE for jacemedical.com, and then at checkout, use my last name, Deace, for your discount code. Discount code Deace at jacemedical.com. Discount code Deace at jacemedical.com. One of those other folks that we learned of that we didn't know was out there, but that connection came courtesy of some of the realignment that came as a result of COVID. He joins us now. I guess I'd call him kind of the Clarence Darrow of the medical freedom movement. If Big Pharma's taking an L somewhere in court, he's probably the reason why. Aaron Siri, the attorney, joins us here on the show from ICANN. And Aaron, we've had you on before. It's good to have you back, brother. How are you?
Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. I want to start with a personal question. My oldest daughter, or Amy and I's oldest daughter, Anastasia, just had her first baby girl. She's going to be 5 months old later this week. And Autumn is her name, and her pediatrician, Amy, or our oldest daughter Anna, came to us and said, "Hey, what do I do with all these vaccines they want to give her?" And we were, when Anna was born 23 years ago, we were very skeptical of the fact that, they wanted to give her like 40 shots compared to the 17 that we took K through 12. And so we always said no to the new stuff and said yes to the stuff they gave us, figured that was, our default was that was more proven. But you come to a realization, Aaron, when you go through an event like COVID and what happened with the poison poke, and you have to ask yourself, is this the first time they've ever done something like this? So my daughter comes to me and says, what should we do with your granddaughter? And I honestly don't know, and I get letters and emails from people all the time about the childhood vaccine schedule. Anna and her husband, Stephen, eventually said, we're going to hold off for now. They got dropped by their pediatrician when they did that. That was just last week. So I know you hear stories like this all the time. So what would you say, based on the extensive work you've done on this, for people that have like the Deace family has, a realization of what's been going on here, courtesy of COVID, and now with school starting up and the pressure is amping up, what would you say to parents around the country?
You want to make an informed, that's a key term there, informed decision. And to make an informed decision when it comes to these products, and their products, I know a lot of folks have emotional attachments to vaccines, but they really are products made by pharmaceutical companies. I assure you, they were not given to Moses at Sinai. They're products made by for-profit companies, and they have a certain safety and efficacy profile. And there's a reality to that. Then there's what you hear about it. But there is a way to help understand and frame vaccines. And so, why don't I start with what you just said with regards to what it is you used to get, right? What you got as a kid, what I got as a kid, and versus what children are expected to receive today. In the early 1980s, there were only 3 routine vaccines. That's it. DTP, MMR, and OPV. 7 injections total. That's it. That was the entire routine CDC childhood schedule. The problem was there was so much harm being caused by those 3 products that every single company that made them went out of business or stopped making them, except that one company was left for each of those 3 vaccines. Congress, in its wisdom, instead of requiring the manufacturers to do what every other consumer product manufacturer has to do in America, is make a better, safer product. Your car's got a defect, you make a better car. Your plane has a problem, make a better plane. The drug hurts people, take it off the market, make a better drug. Every other product out there has to do this. But for vaccines, Congress decided to give the manufacturers immunity from liability for the injuries those products cause. It's called the National Childhood Injury Act of 1986. It said, hey guys, you can keep selling your products injuring children. Don't worry. We'll just make sure they can't sue you for it. And so that was the genesis of really what you see today with regard to COVID vaccine. COVID vaccines didn't fall into, an empty paradigm. There's a well-developed regulatory and economic structure in which vaccines have developed in this country, and COVID vaccine fits right into it. Starting and the whole paradigm really starts in 1986. With the passage of that law, it not only gave immunity to manufacturers for the vaccines existing then, but for any future childhood vaccines they developed thereafter. They knew they were developing them without having to be worried about the liability that would accrue, the injuries that would result from those products. So today, you've gone from those, like I said, 3 routine vaccines, 7 injections. You now, on the childhood schedule, have over 90 doses of vaccines that are on the CDC childhood schedule. You can count that in different ways. You can say, well, there's 15 routine around, there's 19 total. The number of injections is probably well over 50, 60, depending how you count, but it's over 90 doses. I mean, it's an explosive difference. We created a chart that shows the difference. If you want me to share my screen and show it, I'm happy to do that. Okay, you can visualize.
Absolutely.
This. And this chart, just so you understand, is just for the vaccines given in utero while a woman's pregnant and until 1 year of age. That's it. Up till 1 year, before 1 year of age. And so I'm going to share my screen here. Let's see if I could do that. There is a share screen button. Right, there we go. And if you'll indulge me, I believe it's in my Twitter feed, so just an easy way to find it.
That's all right.
There we go. All right, so here we go. You can see it right. Can you see my screen?
Not sure if
I cannot see the screen.
Yeah, if with the equipment we're using broadcast-wise on our end, I'm not sure if it really interfaces with that on your end.
Are we live, by the way?
We are indeed, yes.
Okay,
yes,
sorry.
yeah, sorry about
got
that.
it.
Yeah.
So it's not, so it's not showing. Well, if you could see it, that's fine. If you could see it, you would see what I was just describing in the visualization. So I'll stop sharing my screen, even though I don't think you're seeing it anyway. So, and then the other thing to consider is this, between the early 1980s and today, you've gone from about 12% of children have a chronic health issue to over 50% of children today have a chronic health issue. That increase has happened in lockstep with the increase in child vaccines. Most of those issues that have increased are immune or immune-mediated disorders, things like even asthma and so forth, okay, which is an immune dysfunction, dysregulation, basically. And so I'm not saying, to be clear, I'm not saying that vaccines caused all of that increase, okay? I'm not saying that because there's all types of environmental insults that babies and children experience and have increased and changed since the early 80s, right? Not just vaccines, but all kinds of new chemicals in the environment, all kinds of things that could potentially cause harm. But I can tell you this, that there have been lots of major studies that have been done by our federal health authorities looking for the causes, and they've come up empty-handed. In those studies, they don't look at vaccines. They look at lots of factors, but they don't look at vaccines. Surprising, considering that that's a product you give over and over, and I see it on your screen. Here it is. This is just the difference between 86 and 2024. This is just until 12 months of life. This is the number of vaccines you now give a kid under the CDC schedule versus what we got in 86.
Wow.
So, when people are like, well, we used to always get these things. No, kids are not getting today anything like what they got before. And all of these products were developed by companies knowing they would not have to face the piper when it came to injuries those products caused, just like COVID vaccine. So going back to the increase in chronic health, that increase in chronic health issues, thank you for putting that on the screen. Again, like I said, it's not necessarily all caused by vaccines, but we do know vaccines cause some of them. And there are a number of smaller studies commensurate with the funding that's available for independent researchers that have conducted comparisons of children that got one or more vaccines with children that got no vaccines. They're retrospective studies that looked at existing data, and the differential in terms of chronic health issues are really concerning. So the kids who don't get vaccines have more cases of chickenpox, more cases of pertussis, but the kids who are vaccinated have 4, 5, 6 times the rate of some of the most troubling chronic health issues, developmental disorders, immune issues, neurological issues that are plaguing kids today. And so, those studies could be done on a far larger scale quite easily by our federal health authorities. I mean, they're sitting on, the insurance data of millions of Americans. They've got all kinds of databases. We have been demanding for decades that they publish a study that does that comparison. They've done white papers on doing that study. They've admitted they can do the study, but they've never published that study. Have they done the study? I don't know. Have they published it? No. Because based on all the studies that have been published in that regard, the findings are concerning. But we don't even need to go down that rabbit hole because, I'm going to put this in the context of COVID vaccine because people, I think, really understand COVID vaccines a lot more so than other vaccines. One of the major issues with COVID vaccine, and people appreciate this, I think, is that these companies knew when they were developing these vaccines, they're not going to be on the hook for injuries because of the PrEP Act, which is in addition to the 86 Act, okay? Mm-hmm. And so that conformed how they did, for example, the clinical trial. When you look at the COVID-19 vaccines clinical trial, people are like, wow, that trial was not done properly. It didn't look at safety long enough, only 6 months. It had a placebo control group for only 2 months because they vaccinated them after an average duration of 2 months, okay? And it had only about 30,000 people, which is, not really, half of them got the vaccine, half didn't. That's not what you would call an epidemiologist would call well-powered, right? To really detect issues. And people look at that and say, well, that's not good enough, especially when you look at drugs. When you look at drugs on the market, they have trials often that last years against a placebo control, the whole duration. For example, if you look at the top 5 selling products by Pfizer, okay, 4 of them are drugs, one's a vaccine. The 4 drugs had multi-year placebo-controlled trials. The one vaccine did not have a placebo control, and it was only a few months of safety review. That's the differential. And when you look at childhood vaccines as compared to COVID vaccine, the COVID vaccine clinical trial was actually very robust compared to the trial of most childhood vaccines. Most childhood vaccines are licensed based on literally days or weeks of safety monitoring after injection, no placebo control, and often not enough children in the trial, so it's underpowered. Don't take my word for it. It's all on the FDA website. You can see it for yourself. Look at, well, if we put that chart back up of the child being vaccinated. Do you see how there's
I've got 90 seconds left, Aaron. Go ahead. I've got 90 seconds.
You see how hepatitis B vaccines is actually, that chart doesn't show it well. We could take it off the screen, but hepatitis B vaccine is the first vaccine given. And, if you're able to share in 90 seconds, it might take just a little longer than that, but we could start. We cut me off when you want. I mean, if you're able to pull up a browser, we can go to the FDA website and just look at one of the vaccines if you'd like to do that, Steve.
Sure. Go ahead really quick. Where am I going?
Okay. So let's pull up Google if you want to, put it on the screen.
Yep.
And search in FDA licensed vaccines.
Okay.
See the first result? That page has all the licensed vaccines. Now, if you scroll down to the 4 hepatitis B vaccines, okay, there's 4 listed, only 2 of which are given to babies. Recombavax HB and Endrix B. Click on Recombavax HB, please. Okay.
All right. I'm there.
All right.
So yes, I'm there. Yep.
Click on Recombavax HB.
Yep.
I just see, from what I can see, it looks like scrolling. So if you click
I'm
on
looking at the page right now. It says product information supporting documents for prevention of infection caused by all known subtypes of hepatitis B virus. Is that the right page or not?
I apologize. I'm just seeing you scroll up and down. There must be a lag between what you're seeing and what I'm seeing. But why don't you
there's a lag. Yeah.
Without putting it on the screen, just go to package insert, right? That's the little piece of paper. When you get a drug, there's that piece of paper inside the box. Section 6.1 is required by federal law, has to summarize the clinical trial relied upon for safety. Why don't you take a read? If you pull it up right now, and you'll be able to read the clinical trials relied upon to license that vaccine for children. If you have it in front of you right now here, and do you see that in front of you for Recombavax HB?
We're up against the break, so I actually just closed it out. I'm sorry. But go ahead. Tell us what's there.
Okay, I'll read you the sentence, it says that in 3 clinical studies, 434 doses of Recombavax were administered to 147 healthy infants and children who were monitored for 5 days after each dose. Okay, that's on the FDA website. That is what was relied upon to license this vaccine. This is given to babies.
Wow.
There's 5 days of safety monitoring with 147 children. People look at the COVID vaccine and they say, well, that wasn't properly studied. The other vaccine is really problematic. I understand you got to go to break.
Yeah, that's Aaron. We're going to definitely have you back to continue this conversation. That blows my mind. That's incredible. And probably I speak for many in this audience, brother. Thank you very much, and for the work you're doing. We appreciate it. Thank you. We'll definitely have him back to finish this. Yeah, quickly, go.
I was just going to say one last thing is that our firm, Siri and Glimstead, we represent I Can Decide, ICANN. And if you go to iCanDecide.org/no-chemo, you can get part of all the vaccines. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Aaron. All right, back here with Hour 2, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. Steve Deace here in Dallas for the rest of this week. Todd and Aaron back there in Des Moines. You can let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox. Do so by emailing us, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, me, we, and Gab. You can follow me at Steve Deace Show on X, Instagram, TikTok, and Getter. Also, if you wouldn't mind, if you are a podcast aficionado, we appreciate you. You're a big part of our audience. Please show your appreciation for us by leaving us a 5-star review. If you like the show, you can also hit subscribe or on iTunes these days. That's follow, and that makes sure that every time we do a new episode, it will show up in your feed every single time. So thank you to all of you for all of those things as well. Thanks to our friends over at Preborn. I know a lot of you are just frustrated right now on where pro-life is politically in America. And it dawned on me yesterday. I saw someone else bring this up, and I'm like, you know what? You're right. Guys, have you seen any other, pick a name, Matt Gaetz, Byron Donalds, Rick Scott, any other Florida elected official, Marco Rubio, with any kind of platform or renown, that has said one word about Amendment 4, the Kill 'Em All Amendment on the Florida ballot for the Constitution this year? Any of them? Any of them?
Of course not.
No. None of them. One guy has. One guy's making it an issue, and he just talked about it on our show this week. That's Ron DeSantis. By the way, the timing of, did you guys see Ron DeSantis beat the Biden administration in court today?
Yeah.
That ruling came out just almost exactly at the same time that video of that poor Italian boxer went viral. We're going to talk about that actually at the bottom of this hour. We decided we want to get that into the main show. So we're going to talk about that at the bottom of the hour. So we think this conversation is so important. We're actually going to cut Theology Thursday a little bit short this week because we're going to discuss some theology about this at the bottom of the hour too. So, but yeah, I mean, the timing of that. You have a woman just getting punched in the face at the Olympics right around the same time that DeSantis leads the fight his administration does to defeat Biden's new Title IX guidelines in court. So if that's you, you're just beyond frustrated. Then you know what? Don't give your money to a party that doesn't speak to your values. You should never do that. Give it to Preborn instead. They're actually doing something about your values. Plus, you get the added benefit of a tax deduction. I mean, don't give to a cause just for that reason. But if they're going to give it to you, take advantage of it too, because this is a worthy cause. $28 is all it costs for an ultrasound that has at least 50-50 odds of saving a life, maybe as soon as in the next 24 hours. I mean, where would you have a more worthwhile $28 expenditure in the next 24 hours than that? So make that donation today to our friends at Preborn. They are out on the streets doing soul-to-soul combat, trying to love and save them both the mama and her baby. Trying to save the baby from her mama, but then also trying to save the mama from herself, from making a mistake that will stain her soul and may take many, many years to get over and to overcome if she ever really can. So let's do this new thing where we try to stop evil before it happens instead of reacting to it all the time. You can save lives, make an impact right now with Preborn. Make that donation today. Dial pound 250, say the keyword baby on your mobile phone, or go to preborn.com/Steve. Again, that's preborn.com/Steve. All right, let's get to Theology Thursday. And I really want us, and it's probably all we're going to have time to do anyway, but I really want to zero in on the next two verses in chapter 3 where we left off. And this got us into the whole conversation last week about total depravity, utter depravity. How stained are we by original sin? Are we inherently evil? Are we beyond redemption? And there are different viewpoints that have been expressed regarding this all throughout the history of Christendom. Some differing viewpoints were expressed even on our show last week about this. This conversation continues in verse 19 of chapter 3 when Paul writes these words. Now we know that whatever the law says, and so again, the law is what is revealed through Moses, okay, through Leviticus. This is the law through Deuteronomy, the law that God gives his covenant people Israel, what it means and what is required to live a holy and righteous life. And remind me, guys, how many of the Israelites were able to keep this law? Do you guys remember what the number was?
It's pretty low. Pretty low number.
It's a really low, it's a low one. 0, because we're sinners, we can't. And that's why Paul's going to say next week, for all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. We can't keep it on our own. We can't. And so Paul writes, now we know that whatever the law says, it speaks to those who are under the law, so that every mouth may be stopped and the whole world may be held accountable to God. So I want to lead off this week on this verse with what Charles Spurgeon says in his verse-by-verse exposition of this passage. And he wrote, every man by nature. So last week we discussed our sinful nature. Even if we try, we cannot on our own mediate the difference that sin has caused between us and God. But then Spurgeon says that this means every man by nature tries to open his mouth. For what reason? To say the best he can for and about himself. Or another way of putting this, to express their self-righteousness. But it is the object of God's law to shut every man's mouth. And when we come to that condition, right? Like if you're the one that is being quiet and listening, you're practicing humility. When we come to that condition, that's the condition that Spurgeon is talking about, humility. Then when we come to humility, that's when there is hope for us, he writes. When we have nothing to say for ourselves, then the Lord Jesus will open his mouth for us and plead for the guilty in the courts of God. And this is demonstrated in many ways in the New Testament. One of them, a parable we've alluded to on the show so many times over the years, where Jesus tells a parable of two men that go to the temple to worship, the literal house of God on earth until 70 AD. And two men go to the temple, and one is a religious leader, convinced of his own self-righteous. He's figured it all out. He's the people we've been waiting for. He's the know-it-all. And he looks around at this riffraff and he says, God, thank you. Thank you that I'm not like these kinds of people. These, shall we say, deplorables. Then another man, one of those deplorables, he's at the temple too, stained with sin. But his reaction is opposite. He beats his fist against his chest. This is a sign in the ancient world of great grief and remorse, agony. He beats his fist against his chest, and instead he says, Lord, forgive me. I am a sinner. And then Jesus closes that parable by asking, which man was saved? When I was going through my initial discipleship process after my conversion, I came upon a parable that a Christian apologist had written, and it absolutely just broke me. It just absolutely broke me. He said the parable is there was a father once who had a daughter that was very precious to him. And he's inside working at his desk while she's out playing in the front yard. And he hears tires squealing out in front of his home that day. And so he runs to the window to see what all the commotion was. And his daughter is gone. And he realized that she was kidnapped. She was taken right out of his yard. He, for the next several days, weeks, months, years, does everything he can to find his daughter. Does not wait for his lost daughter to figure it out in her own free will how to escape, but takes the initiative instead. He seeks her. He goes after her. He's exhausted every resource. And finally, the police just convince him that he has to accept that his daughter is probably dead. He'll never see her again. More than a decade of time goes by, and this kidnapped daughter is old enough that she's able to maneuver her way outside the clutches of those who kidnapped her. And they sold her into human trafficking and pornography. She's been forced into almost every degradation you can imagine. And with her face showing, so that'll be tied to her for the rest of her life. She'll never be able to escape it or outrun it. And now that she's been able to escape them, though, she's not sure where to go. She's lost track of and with everybody that she knew. So she decides she's got enough money for a bus ticket. And she decides to take a risk that maybe her family is still in the same home that they once were. And she's tatted up. She's bruised up. Chain smoker. Just whatever whatever you could do to try to self-medicate after what they've put her through and how she's been used and abused, she's done it. And she gets across the street from her childhood home where she was taken. And she sees, he looks much older now. But she sees the man that looks like her father still in that home, working at that desk, just as he was the day that she was taken. And she looks at herself and she thinks, I can't go knock on that door. He would be ashamed of me. I mean, if he truly found out the things I've done the last few years just to basically survive, he'd never take me back. Just then, the father looks up and sees this woman across the street looking out the window. And even though now she's much older too, he would recognize those eyes and those eyelashes anywhere. That's his princess. At least he thinks it is. She decides she's going to walk away. There's no way she would be taken back. And that father sprints outside the door to catch her and bring her back home where she belongs. Just as she is. Not because he wants her to remain as she is now, broken, bruised, battered, but because he knows being where she belongs, at home with him, will put her back together again, the way she was supposed to be. And the first time I read that, it broke me. That's what Paul is saying right here. I think that's what Spurgeon is saying, Paul is saying too. It's not, I've fixed myself enough to go back to church. I've come as far as I can go. It's not like, for me trying to lose 50 pounds this year. I got down 20 pounds on my own in 5 months. And I wanted to kickstart the second half of this and did 75 hard. But I had to get to a certain baseline first. It's not like that with God. I'll stop doing bad stuff and then I'll go back to God. No, you go back to God, and that's why you'll stop doing bad stuff, because you're back where you belong. You're back home. But first, you need to understand who you really are and why you really need Him. And therefore, why without Him you're in the position you are right now. And that requires us to have our mouths be stopped. Paul says in another letter, "Where is the sage of this age? Who would dare stand against God? Make your arguments." Maybe you've heard the old saying, if you want to make God laugh, show him your plans. It is not, I have to get to a certain level myself, and then God will take it from there. It's the exact opposite. It's that I have to get to the end of myself, and then God will take me from there. Gentlemen, we bring you into the conversation here on verse 19. Where do either one of you want to go from here?
Oh, I think you've done an alpha and omega. I mean, this ultimately is supposed to be the summary of what we've discussed up to this point, because there's definitely a transition that happens here in verse 21. So honestly, I would feel like I would just be getting in the way of the exclamation point you put on the whole thing, and there's nothing in particular that I have to offer.
Yeah, I think we can probably transition there now. And I just, the structure of this chapter and this book so far, but especially of this chapter, going into verse 21, Sproul writes, verse 21 begins with my favorite word in the New Testament, but. It makes all the difference in the world. Those three letters, B-U-T, are the difference between heaven and hell. Finally, after this relentless indictment that we've had to endure, we're coming to where Paul finally says, but now the righteousness of God apart from the law is revealed. It's time for the gospel. We've listened to the bad news so that we might hear the goodness of the good news, which we will begin to examine next. Why does Paul structure his message this way? Why does he structure this? And we've gotten into this a little bit. Why does he structure it this way? Why does he structure this with the terrifying law of God? The terrifying expose of our souls exposed. Why does he do this? You know, let's say you have a family crisis that involves life and limb of you and maybe someone close to you, and you have to make that call to your spouse. Everybody's okay, but something bad just happened. How do you begin that? Do you lead with, hey, we almost died? No. You lead with, first of all, everyone's okay. We just went through a calamity. You always lead with the good news. Why is that? Because you're not in danger anymore. Paul leads with the bad news. And it is terrifyingly bad news.
Because we're all in danger right now.
Because we're all in danger right now. Essentially, Paul is saying, you're on the train tracks. A train is coming behind you. You can't see it. You can't hear it. You don't want to see it. You don't want to hear it, even if you could. And this train is no match. You're no match for this train. You will not endure what's coming. You will not endure it. You are no match for it. It will crush you. Get off the tracks. Once you do that, here's the good news, regardless. It's the urgency of the matter. Too many churches try to lead with the good news. And sometimes there are times and places to lead with the good news. But far too many churches in our environment, in our day and age, try to just ignore the bad news. Because that makes us feel bad, makes us feel icky.
Correct.
They try to ignore the bad news. Paul does the exact opposite here because of the urgency of the matter. As long as we are still drawing breath, if we have not turned to God, there is still time yet, but we don't know how much time we have. That is the urgency of the matter. And we neglect that bad news at the expense of the good news. That's the irony here, is that too many people too many churches, too many pastors, hey, we can't talk about sin. We can't talk about the depravity of our souls because that might turn people off. Brothers, you're turning people off to hell if that is your affect, if that is your posture. Amen. And I think that's the urgency that Paul is trying to convey here.
That's phenomenal. Because what you're pointing out is, Aaron, is the false. Not that we're trying to hijack this from our Catholic friend over there, but this is the false choice modern evangelicalism has offered America. Because is it true that it's the love of God that attracts us to him more than any of his other characteristics? Yes. Yes. But that's because we come to understand and appreciate it once we come to understand and appreciate who we really are aside from him, estranged from him. That's then because here's the thing that Paul says in verse 20. For the works of the law, no human being will be justified in his sight, since the law comes with knowledge of sin. Because otherwise, God gave us a law, we can't keep it, and all it did is just reveal we can't keep it, and we're sinners, right? Well, then we're stuck. We're cornered, it would seem. There's no way out. That so God speaks through Moses, speaks through his prophets, gives us his law. We can't keep it. to the point that we have national sins that are punished and diasporas. And yet now, then what hope is there? We're stuck. And then God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whomsoever will believe in him will not perish, but have eternal life. That's the hope. That's the answer right there. But if we just offer the love of God without the knowledge of whom we are, and this gets into the law and grace that Luther's most famous for his 95 Theses, but that by many people's account was actually his most important work, Law and Grace. That's what, Aaron, you and I are discussing here. Think about it this way in another context. When you lived in your parents' house and you left the lights on all the time, you were annoyed that they told you to keep turning the lights off because they were the ones paying the electric bill, so why do you care? What happened when you moved into your own place? And now you come into a knowledge now that you didn't previously really have. I mean, you kind of knew that, the utility bill was not cheap. You kind of knew it, but you didn't know it. You kind of extemporaneously knew it, but you didn't really know it. Didn't know what it really cost. You just knew it cost a lot, to the point your parents kept bugging you to turn the lights off. But now, folks, when you're the one and you own this, and this is where you live, and you're paying that bill, now that bill is your responsibility. That bill is your responsibility. That bill is your responsibility to the powers that grant you said utility. Now you are in full knowledge of what it costs. And now you're like, turn the AC up to 76. Hey, make sure to turn the lights off on the way out. Because it's your responsibility now. See where I'm getting at with this? Unless we truly understand what we are responsible for, and then ultimately whom we are responsible to, we will receive teaching of the love of God as affirmation for us. We will essentially, we used to mock snowflake culture and conservative media all the time. That is essentially what modern American evangelicalism has created, snowflakes. There's just such a unique purpose for you, and it wouldn't get fulfilled if it weren't for you. That's not actually how this works at all. Haman comes to, or is it Mordecai comes to Esther and says, hey, if you don't do what God has called you to do, salvation will come to the Jews by another means. God's not sitting up there in heaven saying, man, hopefully this Esther Hail Mary pass works out or the whole messianic line is off. That's not how this works. Now, Esther will get judged if she doesn't do what she's called to do. But God's word's not going to return void, regardless of what Esther does. That's what Mordecai is saying. But that's not what we teach in evangelicalism. You decide for Jesus. You live for Jesus. What's the first word and pronoun operative there, Aaron, in each one of those exchanges?
You.
You. That it's about you. It's not about you. And as Todd has pointed out many times, ironically, that is the first line of the best-selling Christian book of this era from a teacher who taught the church to just make it all about you from that time forward of writing that line. It's not about us at all. It's about him. And I'm reminded of one of the times that Anna used to come with me when she was little. She used to come with me to speaking engagements if they were local. And she came and heard me speak at a Missouri Synod Lutheran church in rural Iowa once. And we discussed the grace of God, the sovereignty of God, and glorifying God. And on the way back, Anna asked me a question, and she said, Daddy, is God selfish? He wants everything to be about him. And I said, sweetie, here's the God is not like us. When we make everything about us, that's when we become selfish. When we make everything about God, that's when he's his most selfless. Before we get out of here, Todd, you want to chime in on any of this at all?
Well, I will Scott Hahn actually, I think, addresses exactly what you're talking about, and I think he does it in a unique way. It's ultimately quite paradoxical. It remains unclear what exactly the expression faith in Jesus Christ is supposed to convey, because the Greek is literally faith of Jesus Christ. This understands Paul to say that, in one sense, it understands Paul to say that Jesus is the object of our faith and the mediator of God's righteousness. This is perfectly acceptable and in certain ways preferable. But as some modern scholars have correctly pointed out, the expression could also mean that Jesus is the subject whose faithfulness makes God's righteousness manifest in history. Deciding between our faith in Jesus Christ and the faithfulness of Jesus Christ is difficult. I think that's exactly what you just said, Steve. It's the difference between him and me. When we use you, I think you both are on the exact same wavelength. And this happens to come out within the translation itself. And perhaps that's why they chose to go one way. Because it's simply less challenging to confront.
That last line right there, less challenging to confront. The amount of self-editing that goes on in American pulpits today. What can you handle? What can you listen to? What will you accept? All those things, by the way, are code for what'll keep you coming and donating. That's what they're all code for. Let's just be honest about that. That's what they're all code for. Aaron, you want the last word?
Paul gets into this, and R.C. Sproul exposited this a little bit earlier. I believe it was in this chapter, but let us not pit attributes of God against each other, as if his justice decreases when his mercy and love increases, or his love and mercy decreases as his justice increases. No, they rise and fall. They are not opposed to one another. This has everything to do with the conversation that we just had, is that because in modern evangelicalism, we tend to message, we tend to wrap things up in packages that with a wink and a nod, whether or not we're intentionally doing it. We try to package the gospel in a way to say that God's love is increasing, therefore his judgment is decreasing. Or we're afraid that if we lead with the sinfulness of human behavior, that his judgment is increasing at the expense of his love. It is not that way. He is not like us. That is a fleshly way of thinking. And that, I think, is the undergirding of the conversation, the critical part of this conversation that we just had.
Amen. All right, we're going to have another theological conversation about what just happened at the Olympics to an Italian female boxer punched in the face by a man. Next. Well, if you are one of the growing numbers of Americans that are trying to avoid working all week and then giving the money that you've earned to companies that will then turn right around and try to take away your way of life and donate it to literally demonic causes, then why not apply the exact same thing when it comes to your retirements, your investments, your portfolio? Our friends at Constitution Wealth can help you do that, all right? Do not let, again, the money that you earned, that you socked away for retirement, the money you socked away to give away later in life to your loved ones, maybe as a legacy. Do not let that money be used as a weapon against everything that you hold dear. So let Constitution Wealth be your financial fortress, helping you defend your values with absolutely every dollar. You can secure your family's future with a rock-solid investment plan that reduces the grip that ESG, DEI, and other demonic schemes have on your portfolio right now. If you want to learn more about this, our friends at Constitution Wealth can help you. I mean, after all, why not work with an investment advisor that shares your values and take action now? Visit constitutionwealth.com/blaze. Sign up for a free consultation today to get started, just to see if it's a good fit for you. All right, constitutionwealth.com/blaze. Again, that's constitutionwealth.com/blaze. All right, I want to get into more Theology Thursday. Because every issue is a theological issue. If God is both immanent and transcendent, then every issue is a theological issue. Now, some are directly theological, some are explicitly theological, some are indirectly theological, but every decision that is being made is starting from some form of a moral premise. The decision about, whether to zone a property, commercial or residential, is beginning with some moral premise. Everything is. Sometimes it's more obvious than others, like on the issue of abortion, for example, but they're all beginning from a moral premise. Every issue, therefore, is a theological issue. A lot of times we think that we're not being explicitly demonic by being secular. But that begins with a lie that there's anything secular. There isn't. Nothing is secular. Not what you do in your bedroom, even with a consenting adult. It's not secular. Those body parts you're doing it with were created and given to you for a reason. They even come with a manufacturer's warranty. That body will expire. They even come with a user manual. What said parts are for and what they're supposed to be used for and whom and with. Nothing is secular. Nothing is. Nothing is. And all believing in secularism will do is set the stage for you to eventually become overtly pagan and demonic. Because every issue is a theological issue. Every single one. If there are areas and sectors of human life that God is not sovereign over, then he is not sovereign. Jesus is either Lord of all or he is Lord not at all. You do not retain space apart from the sovereignty of God, the knowledge of God. You don't. Nobody does. And when we pretend that there are spaces where he is to be absent, other gods, false ones, dark ones, will then take his place. Not because God could not still go there if he wanted to. He is sovereign. But this goes back to this study we're doing on Romans, that whole Romans 1 thing. They exchanged the truth for a lie, so God gave them over to their own depraved minds. Okay. Fine. I will let you have your way. Now let us see what happens. And one of the ultimate, let's see what happens, just happened at the Olympics. And you can tell that this is bad because the entire LGBTQ brigade, rainbow jihad, is silent and quiet as kept right now. Waiting to see, okay, this is the first time something like this has happened on this big of a stage, what everybody's been warning about. Let's sit back and gauge the fallout. Todd, was it just yesterday that you said on the show, or was it Monday on the show? Sometime earlier this week that you said you're not even sure
yesterday
a woman being killed would thwart this. It was just yesterday, not knowing that this was going to happen in the Olympics, and here we are.
And I remain convinced of that.
Let's see what happens when we say, God, you're wrong. There aren't just men and women. You're wrong about that. Or you're not tolerant enough and haven't changed your mind. You don't know what our new The Science trademark is telling us. Let's see what happens. What you saw in that ring in the video of the young lady from Italy who just gets down on her knees afterwards, I saw an interview where she said afterwards, this is the hardest I've been hit in my life. She's been boxing for years. She's taken more punches than most of the men. And here she is just absolutely broken. Because first of all, we could even argue, now this takes us down another rabbit trail, but I think it needs to be said. We could argue that even putting women in the boxing ring on some level is some form of a spirit of the age deception that women are to be like men.
Agreed. I would not let my daughters box or wrestle.
I will tell you, I've never been interested in watching any of it. I saw enough of women getting beaten in my home growing up. I don't need to see it anymore. I got an eyeful. I'm good. Saw enough of that.
But this clearly, your point is well taken. This isn't about exclusively a boxing issue. You started off as this is an alpha and omega issue. You were right out of the gate.
Yep. Yes. So we told God, you're not welcome here. We got this. So he's like, well, let's see what happens. And on the biggest stage in athletics and on planet Earth, you saw a domestic assault. Except you saw people cheer and clap, and you saw the man who did it brazenly go over and try to get some congratulations and even console the woman that he assaulted. Saw that growing up too. Hey, I'm sorry I hit you. Don't overreact. Don't cry. I won't ever do it again. I mean, that hit me, man, in the ticker when I saw that. I saw that play out too much as a kid. I know what that's like. It's unnatural. We have this term today, toxic masculinity. There is no such thing. There is just masculinity. And all male behavior that is not masculine is what is toxic. That's the toxicity. The unmasculine behavior. The masculine behavior is that men, one of our primary directives from our Creator, is the protection and the defense of women and children. And that is why virtually every culture in human history, pagan, Jewish, Christian, has had some honor code that when there is a moment of great calamity, women and children first. One of the greatest box office success stories is James Cameron's Titanic. You guys remember the Billy Zane character?
Yes.
Now, this movie came out in 1999, and the Billy Zane character, he lies his way onto the rescue boat, takes a spot away from a woman or a child. And he's clearly the villain, and he's a disgraced character for this. If they made this movie today, Billy Zane would just identify as a woman. Oh, okay, you're on the front lines. You go first. We wouldn't want to, be offensive here. And make sure you fly the rainbow flag while you watch these other actual women drown. That moment with her on her knees sobbing was a portrait of what the spirit of the age has done to women of this generation. The lies that they have been told. And that she did everything. She made herself tougher. She made herself more masculine. She made herself tougher, more physical than most of the guys of her era, takes more punches than most of the guys of her era. She did it all. She did everything they said to do, become more like a man. And after years of all of that toil and struggle and perseverance and work, this is supposed to be now her stage. She's arrived. She did what she was told to do. I'm not staying at home a wife and a mom. I'm in the boxing ring. I got the eye of the tiger. I'm doing what I'm told to do. And then out then walks a man who nearly breaks her face and steals her glory. And there's nothing left to do but sob. You were broken by the very spirit of the age that deceived you in the first place. And this also, I think, speaks greatly to how men have systemically failed the women of this generation as well. The idea of wanting to compete with women would have been a point of scorn and mockery. You would have been rightfully bullied by other men for even contemplating such a thing. Not even when Aaron was in school, and he's barely 30. Now everybody is silent and quiet is kept. I go back, and I mentioned this to Megyn Kelly this morning, the first time we watched Leah Thomas compete against women. And he goes out there after finishing in 462nd place the year before against his fellow men. And he goes out there the very next year swimming against women and wins multiple national championships. Todd, you remember those shows we did? We couldn't believe, just the dads just scrolling on their phones, sitting in the stands.
Yeah.
while their daughters are just absolutely having all of their hard work and investment just robbed from them. And I said this to Megan on her show. I'm going to tell you right now, if that's my daughter, I'm going to dare a jury to convict me for how I'm going to react to that, straight up. Megan told me there's a story coming out of Canada right now of a 50-year-old man swimming against middle schoolers, claiming he's a woman, and he's changing with them, and they're letting him get away with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just telling you right now what any other previous generation of men and fathers would have done to such a fiend would just saying it out loud would get us banned everywhere. But we all know, and therefore we also know why that didn't happen in previous generations. Where are the men? Where are they? Where have they been? Absent. Emasculated. So now the women have to take our place. They've got to be tougher and more physical. They've got to be more masculine. So they buy into that lie. And then these lies collide in this squared circle at the Olympics. And it ends up with this poor woman. My heart just as a girl dad broke for her, just sobbing. She's broken. She's been failed. No one came to her rescue. The feminist who told her she could become like a man and be more manly and be successful doing it, silent, not here to defend her. And the men who should have created a culture and a world that would make it even unthinkable for a woman to want to engage in such things and activities. Silent, not there to protect and defend her while she is literally assaulted. For sport. She's chattel. No, folks, there is no secular realm. There is nothing secular, and everything is theological. Everything is. And when we claim otherwise, we go back to Romans 1, and God says, okay, we'll give you over to your own depraved minds. Let's see what happens. And we all sadly just saw. Todd and Aaron, I want to find out what you guys think about this after I talk about our friends over at Lassie Health. It's not health insurance, but it is access to the healthcare you want without all the red tape, the restrictions, and the never-ending inflated costs. Coverage plans start at just $30 a month. You can get transparent pricing, comprehensive coverage that's tailored to your needs, access to healthcare services without breaking the bank. There's no annual or lifetime caps on services either, and you can start a plan at any time for, again, as low as $30 a month. And even that low-end plan, you still get over 400 prescription medications for free unlimited virtual mental health counseling, free 24/7 virtual urgent care, lab tests for up to 60% off, imaging tests for up to 75% off, procedures and surgeries for over half off. That's just, again, the entry-level plan. So Lassie Health, as you can see, is a game changer. Check out affordable plans that put you in control of your health at healthylink.com/Steve. That's healthylink.com/Steve. For a limited time, you'll get your first month. That's up to $100 off eligible plans for free. So get healthy, be healthy, and stay healthy without breaking the bank at healthylink.com/Steve. Once again, healthylink.com/Steve. Floor is open there, back there in Des Moines.
Well, Sports Bar Radio knows the Olympics is on, and they're talking about it. I've heard them talk about two women named Simone Biles and Katie Ledecky this week. But today, this news had already broken in one of the most popular sports shows in the nation. They're talking about the lineup changes within USA Men versus South Sudan. They're going to kill some. They're doing this, the whole weird thing with J.D. Vance, that has nothing to do with him. That is their next play. They've moved this far enough along that they're the normies. We're the weird ones for even noticing this. Who cares? And, boxing is violent. People die sometimes. They're going to pull this on us. And we're probably not going to do anything about it. Damn it. We tried to warn you. My own daughter stepped up a couple years ago. We stopped this in Iowa almost by ourselves with like 50 other girls. Because everybody else is just drunk on cowardness. What did you think was going to happen? Actually, you knew, and you just didn't care.
Yeah, this goes back to what I was saying about the structure of Romans. I mean, this was the train's coming. It's coming. You're willfully blinding yourself, willfully making yourself deaf to what's coming. We're trying to tell you, we're trying to warn you. For years, we've done this. A lot of people on the right, maybe not as effective as maybe they should be, but we tried to warn. It was never not going to end up here. Never not going to end up here. That's just the reality of the situation. And so it's everybody's fault. It's everybody's fault. It's the women who consent to this. It's the men who do nothing about this. It's the people who I've always contended, and there are a lot of people out there, they are legion, who know, not even that deep down, probably at a surface level, this is kind of weird. There's a dude competing against my daughter, but tolerance, diversity, golf clap, they're the ones with the biggest mental illness and spiritual illness. Even more than the ones who are claiming they're the gender that they're not, or the sex that they're not. They are the ones with the biggest mental and spiritual illnesses, because they know, not even at a deep soul level, they know at the surface level this is wrong. But golf clap, tolerance, diversity, acceptance, they're the problem.
Preach is all I can say to that. Talk to you tomorrow, noon to 2 Eastern after Glenn Beck. Until then, Romans 8:28.